Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals publish, get their books done to educate consumers, grow their businesses, and to leave a legacy. I'm doing a series of spotlights on remarkable business intermediaries from across the country. And joining me on this segment is JT, Jim Tatem. He's with Transworld of Greenville, South Carolina. JT, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you having us on, and pleasure to be here.
JT, tell us a little bit about your work, and specifically, who are the types of clients that you specialize in helping?
Yeah, that's great. Well, there's really three things we do at Transworld, probably as good as, if not better than anybody else. And the first is business brokerage, business advising for folks who may be a business owner, and it's time for them to make the transition, sell their operation, sell their business. Maybe they're looking to retire, spend more time with the family, buy on an island in the Caribbean, whatever their motivation may be. We work with them to bring the business to market, find the right buyer, bring the buyer and seller together, make that transaction happen. So that's number one. Number two, sometimes the sellers that we work with really aren't interested in selling. They say, JT, my business is doing so great, I wish I had 10 of these things. And so if that's the case, we can help them by turning their concept into a franchise business through Accurate Franchising. That's one of our sister companies. And I've been in the franchising space for about 35 years, so know the franchise world very, very well. And that's leg of the stool number two is franchise development. And then the third is sometimes the buyers that we work with, Mark, they may call about an independent business and maybe it's the right one for them, or sometimes maybe it's not because they're first-time business owners and they'd like training and marketing and support and branding and all the things that they may be able to get the benefit of owning a franchise with. And we've got about 400 different franchise concepts that we can match make for that buyer to find the ideal opportunity for them.
Terrific. So when you hear from these businesses and maybe they're interested in selling,
Yes.
how experienced are they, or do they need a lot of hand-holding in the process? Tell us a little bit about what business owners are like when they're looking to sell their business.
No, it's a great question. And, you have kind of different spectrum. You got the mom and pop Main Street business, we call it. That might be the local pizza shop, the nail salon, a small auto repair business, et cetera. And then we go all the way up here into the, middle market and the M&A world where you've got $5-10 million a year operations, or they may be selling for $5 to $10 million. So this group here, they tend to have spent all of their time, effort, and energy focusing on building the business. So thinking about the exit strategy and how to sell their business, they're probably not prepared for that. And so they need a lot of coaching and hand-holding through the process. They're on a journey to take what they've now built up and be able to, turn that into a good ROI, get a good return. But they may not know the steps of the process. So we're there to kind of come alongside of them and help them get across the finish line. When you go to the middle market space and then the M&A world, those tend to be more sophisticated sellers. And they probably have, a team of people that are working with them on the accounting side, the legal side, and they have great books and records, and they've got balance sheets, and they've got all of their systems and processes very well documented. That's the more sophisticated buyer, and they've probably been thinking about an exit strategy to get to the point where they're ready to sell. And we serve them on both ends of the spectrum and everybody in between.
So I've read a recent statistic, and a large percentage of businesses, maybe over 80%, that go for sale are really unsellable and don't ever end up selling. What causes that? Could you kind of give us some of the pitfalls or the biggest pillars or reasons why a business may not sell?
Well, it's an interesting statistic. I know in Transworld, we have a higher percentage of the businesses that we list actually do go through in a sale. And part of that is because of the preparation of getting the business ready to bring to market. Just because you want to sell something doesn't mean it's sellable. It would be kind of like having a house and you've, let your house get dilapidated and the door needs a paint job and the windows are broken. You got to fix that up to give it curb appeal. That's most people would understand that term. Same thing as if you're going to sell your car, you wash it first. Well, if you're going to sell your business, you want to prepare it. So the good books and records is probably one of the first and foremost things that a buyer is going to look at. So making sure that you've got your accounting is being done right. Certain businesses are very heavily credit card, purchase order oriented. So most of the sales are being recorded easily. And then there are other businesses where a percentage of their business is credit card, but another percentage may be cash. And so getting that seller to understand, look, report that cash, let that come through all the way to the tax return and the profit and loss statement, because every dollar that you bring in that winds up left over as profit gets a multiple applied to it for the selling price of the business. So the more that's left over, the higher we're going to sell the business for. So the first thing would be making sure that it's got good curb appeal. You clean it up. I always like to say to my sellers, if you or your wife were going to come walk through this business for the first time, what would be the things that they would see that would excite them? What would be the things that they see that would turn them off? Let's fix the turnoffs. Okay. I don't know if you're like me. I'm married for 35, 36 years now. If my wife and I go to a restaurant, she goes to the restroom and it's not clean, we're out of there, because she doesn't trust that they can't clean the restroom. What's the kitchen must look like? Okay. So you got to have the books and records in play and in good condition. The next thing would be is, what's the location like? Is the lease a good lease if you're leasing the space? You don't want to get to the point where, well, I'm on month to month and I'm not sure I want to re-sign the lease. That doesn't give a lot of security to the buyer coming in. So make sure you got a good location locked down, a good lease negotiated. And then, of course, is the industry a good industry? Is it a business that's an overnight sensation and nobody's ever heard of it, or it's not something that is a staple business that everybody's going to need to use? Because you want to give the buyer the comfort going forward that when you're gone, there's still a need and a requirement for the business in the local marketplace. Those are a couple things to consider.
Great insight. JT, we're in an interesting time right now. You've got a wave of folks, retiring, selling their businesses. And now you also have the great resignation, where a lot of folks are wanting to go into business for themselves.
Yes.
What's your perspective been? Is it really a good time to buy or sell a business today?
It really is. It's a unique time for both. In the past, it's been very, last several years has been very seller focused. So the sellers are in the driver's seat. But now with, as you mentioned, the baby boomers that are leaving, a whole generation, you're on the tail end of that now. They've built the business over 20, 30 years, and it's time for them, as we said, to retire, spend more time with the family, buy the island in the Caribbean, whatever their motivation is. And at the same time, you've got that whole new generation coming in that doesn't want to work for the same company for 20 or 30 years and get a gold watch like grandpa did. What they want is that I want to be the next Elon Musk. I want to be the next Zuckerberg. I want to control my own destiny, run my own future. And so they look at business ownership as a great way to do that. And, relatively speaking, financing is still pretty easy to come by and money is still fairly cheap until we see what happens next. But that makes a very interesting demographic coming in and a demographic going out of the market at the same exact time. It's been a boom for us. So many people who are calling us week after week saying, I'm ready. How do I get my business prepared? And on the other side, you went through COVID, people were laid off or furloughed or whatever the term of the month was that they were using at the time. And most of those people were saying, I don't want somebody controlling my future, my destiny anymore. If I'm going to decide, if I'm not going to work, I'm going to decide I'm not working, not somebody else deciding for me.
Fascinating. JT, what inspired you to get into this line of work? How did you get started in the field?
Yeah, it's a great question. As I mentioned earlier, I've been in franchising for about 30 plus years. I started in a small sign and graphics business on Long Island, New York in 1986 called, at the time, Speedy Signorama USA. Eventually, Signorama became a franchise about a year and a half, 2 years later. And I was fortunate enough to start in the very first store. The owner of the company sold the signs. I made the signs. That's how we began. And we then franchised the business to about 700 or 800 locations in 60 countries around the world. So I've been in the franchising space for a long time, helping people get in business, grow a business, sell their businesses eventually. And as that brand Signorama continued to grow, we added new franchise concepts to the family. And about 12 years ago, Transworld was a local business brokerage firm in South Florida. We were located in West Palm Beach, and they were located in Fort Lauderdale. They were looking to expand outside of the state of Florida and thought franchising would be a good mechanism to do that. And at the same time, our franchise company had about half a dozen different brands at the time, and we were looking to get into business brokerage to help franchise owners who were looking to exit be able to find the right buyer for themselves. And so it was kind of a marriage made in heaven. Transworld Business Advisors was born from Transworld Business Brokers and the folks at United Franchise Group. And at the time, I was the president of the Signorama concept, and for about 3 or 4 years, the president of United Franchise Group as a whole. And I'm watching these new franchise brands come aboard, and I'm fascinated at all the different industries that we got involved with. But I'm also gone most of the time, Mark. When you have 1,600 franchises in 80 countries around the world, you don't spend a lot of time at home. At least I didn't. And so after 30 some odd years, I went to Ray Titus. He's the CEO and owner of United Franchise Group. He's the guy that started selling the signs back in '86 that I was making. We've been together for a long time, kind of like an old married couple, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, he nags me all the time and I finish his sentences. So that's kind of how we work together. And I said, this has been great. I've loved what I've done. I've got great relationships all over the world. But quite frankly, I've taught for 30 plus years other people how to get into business and be successful. And I'd like to take my own shot. And he always said to me, just tell me what you want to do, JT, and I'll help you get there. So we decided that for me and my family, the best thing was a relocation. We moved from West Palm Beach, Florida, here to Greenville, South Carolina. We opened our office in Greenville and another one in Asheville. And the biggest benefit, Mark, is I get to see my kids who are now having kids. We have 7 grandkids. One just happened on Monday this week, as a matter of fact. And I get to sleep in my own bed every night, which was something I didn't do for 30 plus years. So that was my motivation to go into the business for myself, but still be able to help people get in business, grow business, sell businesses as part of the Transworld Network.
Wow, JT, you've had like one of the most incredible stories that I've heard on the show so far. I'm telling you, that's incredible. What a wealth of experience and knowledge, and people that get to work with you in your area are extremely lucky. So JT, tell us, for folks listening now on the show that would definitely love to work with you and speak with you, how do they find you, connect with you, and learn more?
Well, there's 2 quick and easy ways. The first is to just call my mobile and my office line. They're one and the same. That number is 864-315-8998. And or you can email me at any time. The email address is jt1@tworld. That's JT, the number 1 @tworld.com.
JT, this has been terrific. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your insights with my audience today, and I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Appreciate you very much, Mark. And again, great success to you and your show.
That was JT, Jim Tatem, and he's with Transworld Business Advisors. This segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done and published to educate consumers, grow their businesses, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.